Hey, everybody, welcome back to the SCB Steelers Inside Blitz, presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. Thanks so much to the guys at Variety Sports Network for the platform. And of course, the show comes to you from the Frank Walker Law Studio. And again, thanks to Frank for re upping this week for yet another year. Great partnership we've had with Frank for a long, long time, and something we value a lot. Uh, 1 week ago today, Mike Tomlin decided that he was done. He was not going to be the head football coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers anymore, and he informed his players. And then we all found out, and since then it's been, it's been as expected. The Steelers are doing their due diligence, if you will, and have about 9 or 10 guys that they've lined up to talk with and everything. But so far a number of these guys, they've only been able to do the online or Zoom meetings, if you will, with including Chris Shula and Nate Schilhaas. Out there with the Rams, who are obviously still in the playoffs and can't do any live or in-person interviews with those guys yet. So if those guys seem to be at the top of their list, it's going to be a little while. What I can tell you is that Brian Flores did interview in person today. Mike McCarthy is supposed to interview in person tomorrow. And then Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver will interview in person on Thursday. So let me get to McCarthy first. He's a Pittsburgh guy. He's 62 years old. So here's the way I look at McCarthy. If the Steelers feel like they're in a situation where they really don't have a quarterback, their roster is going to be in complete and total flux. Okay. There's a lot of guys that are likely not coming back. And there might be some guys that request to not come back because Mike Tomlin's no longer here. And that is totally fine. Okay. Do they view going outside their paradigm that they've used for Chuck Noll, for Bill Cowher, for Mike Tomlin, and maybe bringing in a guy like Mike McCarthy, a Super Bowl winner, a veteran coach who knows what he's doing, just to get us through the next couple of years? Because I continue, and I've said this on the regular podcast, I don't think we're going to be drafting a quarterback in the first round this year. I know the draft is in Pittsburgh. It would be super exciting. It's what we all thought was going to happen a year ago. I don't see it. Fernando Mendoza is going to go number 1. And then after that, well, I don't want Ty Simpson in the first round. He's had 15, 16 starts in his career. I need something more than that. I'm not saying guys haven't gone on to success in the NFL that have had limited collegiate starts, but I would really like to see somebody with some more starts. And I'm not totally convinced about his overall skill set. So I really don't think that's the case. And that takes me back to McCarthy. Let McCarthy run the show. Bring in a young offensive mind to do some things there, and go get a veteran defensive coordinator. Maybe I don't know. I'm just totally spitballing here, but I think that's really the only reason they would be looking at McCarthy. The only other options would be you're doing him a favor, maybe just because he's a Pittsburgh guy. Making other teams think, hey, if the Steelers are interested, well, maybe we should be too. Or they're just simply picking his brain, and they're trying to get some info on some of these guys that maybe McCarthy knows about, whether it's offensive, defensive, doesn't matter. I can tell you this. I don't think this fan base is going to accept Mike McCarthy very well. Yes, Pittsburgh guy. Great, wonderful, but this isn't Bill Cowher, okay? This is a guy with a long track record already as a head coach. He's got not only does he have a Super Bowl win, but it's at the expense of us. And he's a former Dallas Cowboy coach. do we really want to take Dallas Cowboy leftovers? I I'm just saying. I think that's part of it. I really do. Um, so again, I take it somewhat seriously, but I don't think he's the guy. Brian Flores interviewed today. Obviously, there's familiarity from the year that he spent in Pittsburgh after he was let go by the Dolphins. So look, here's the thing about Brian Flores. You're getting a really good football coach, especially on the defensive side of the ball. This is a guy that called the defense for the Patriots at one time, even though he wasn't technically the defensive coordinator. He still called the defense. I think his last year there, but he's been with the linebackers. He's been in the secondary. He is very good with defensive football, but there is some baggage. Okay, not only did his time in Miami not go well, despite a 10-6 season that he didn't make the playoffs, and then a season he started 1-7 and ended up winning the last 8, and was let go. Okay. Part of that was because there were reports that he wasn't the best person, best guy, didn't have great relationships with some of the key players, that kind of stuff. And I'm not dismissing those things because they have been said, they've been stated numerous times. I also think you have to be careful because of the lawsuit. He's got a hefty lawsuit against the NFL. He believes that when he was interviewing for jobs, specifically with the New York Giants, that he was slighted, that he was basically just given interviews to appease the Rooney Rule, to appease somebody else, that he never really had a true shot at it. He's also got a complaint against Miami Dolphins owner, who Flores claims went to him and said, I need you to lose these last couple of games, get us a better draft pick, and even offered him $100,000 to do so. Okay, that's Flores's contention. Obviously, the Dolphins say it's not true. But those are things you have to consider if you're Art Rooney too, if you're Omar Khan, if you bring in Brian Flores. Okay, doesn't take away the fact that he's not a good football coach, because I think we all know that he is. But do you want to take on those extra things? Because as of right now, those things are still in the courts, not going anywhere. Anthony Weaver right now is kind of a wild card, a former Raven, very familiar with the rivalry. Also played in Houston. Everything I know about him, good guy, and has a pretty good history in the league. As a defensive line coach and then a defensive coordinator with the Dolphins. They weren't great this year defensively. They weren't terrible, but pretty middle of the road. But I don't think that matters, because remember, Mike Tomlin, as a defensive coordinator for the Vikings, the year he was hired by the Steelers, was 6-10. Okay, his defense was not necessarily the greatest defense. So precedent exists. Maybe that's what they're looking at doing here with Anthony Weaver. I don't know. They said, or Rooney too said, I want leadership. And if they feel that he's the guy that can do that, then you go with him. Now obviously some of the other guys that have done the online interviewing, and I'm hopeful that a guy like Clay Kubiak, is going to get a look this week for an in-person interview, since the Niners are no longer part of the playoff picture. I am certainly, I'm not rooting for or against the Rams. Obviously, it helps our situation. If the Rams lose this weekend, then we can expedite the process with in-person interviews with Shula and Shieldhouse. But I really wish I could tell you that I had a feel for where the Steelers are going right now. Clearly, they like head coaching experience. If 2 of the 3 guys that they've interviewed already are former head coaches, that is very different than, again, what we've seen over the last 50 years. And I don't know. In a perfect world, I think I would bring in Chris Shula, and I think I would bring in Nate Shieldhouse to run the offense. He's got experience calling plays. He did it in college. He's a 4-time starting quarterback at Illinois. I think there's a lot to like about him. And then Shula brings in a defensive coordinator that's going to do what he wants to do defensively. And that's where I'm at. And that doesn't mean that I won't be happy if it's Anthony Weaver or somebody else. I just think right now that's kind of where I'm at. If you're going to go with change, then just go with change. Everything else has been completely thrown out the window. So why not go ahead and follow that pattern and either go with a young defensive coordinator type guy that's going to be your head coach, and go with young, exciting, revolutionary offense. Okay. Because what's been going on with Arthur Smith and Matt Canada has not been working. And yes, we can talk personnel till we're blue in the face and all those things, but be that as it may, I think that's the pattern of what I would like to see. Okay. Before I let it go here and get on out of here tonight, just a quick farewell and thank you to Danny Smith. The longtime Steelers special teams coordinator has agreed to join the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it's been kind of interesting to see the reaction of some Steelers fans. There's some that are happy to see him go. They claim that because we haven't had any kick returns for touchdowns, that get him out of here, he's useless. I hope people know there's a hell of a lot more that goes into special teams than just getting touchdowns on kick returns. And by the way, getting those is not easy, but fine. Okay. Let's say that's been a drawback of his. How about all the other good things he's done though? From the development of Chris Boswell to working with numerous punters, to protections, to finding guys to be your gunners, from the Ben Skoroneks and James Pierres of the world. I think Danny Smith has done an above average job. I don't think he's a Hall of Fame special teams coach. That's not what I'm saying, but there's a lot more that goes into special teams than I think what people sometimes think it is. So sad not to have him out there. He's a character. He's a lifer. Pittsburgh guy, and wish him well in Tampa Bay. Anyway, we will have all the latest on the Steelers coaching search coming up on Thursday night during the regular show, and the guys will join me at 10 p.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel and live on Twitter as well, or X or whatever the hell they call it, and all that good stuff. But I'm excited to see what this team does, but I'm nervous. I'll say that. I'm a little nervous. And we'll just leave it at that. Anyway, we'll get on out of here. Thanks so much, everybody. Check out the site at steelcityblitz.com. And hopefully we will see you on Thursday night, 10 p.m. on our YouTube channel. Go Steelers. We've had some drinks.